Hey there, gang. Patrick King here. I'm coming at you. If you're listening to this podcast or this broadcast live, I'm coming at you from Manaway, Ohio. I'm teaching this week at Sand Hill Stables. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of our coffee conversations. It's been quite a while, actually, since I've had one of these, and I've had a lot of folks asking about bringing these back. So. Not that they were ever gone, just that the schedule's been kind of crazy lately and haven't had an opportunity really to do these. But I'm looking forward to getting back to these quite a bit. So throughout these, if you have any recommendations or any thoughts on episodes or topics for future episodes, that'd be fantastic. Feel free to check in with us about those. Check in with me. Send me a message. Let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section. That'd be great too. So I've been getting some flack today since announcing that we were going to do the coffee conversation, and the flack has been about the time, and everybody says it's too late for coffee. I've got to have wine with this. So I guess it's a wine and wisdom conversation. I don't know. But, you know, I figured I would meet in the middle, and I picked up a bottle of, what is this? Apothic Brew, red wine, Cabernet, infused with cold brew coffee. So I'm meeting in the middle, getting the best of both worlds. So if you're joining me with a coffee or a tea or a wine or whatever you're joining with, please feel free to let me know that in the comment section. That'd be awesome. So we want to talk a little bit today about our aids, about the rider's aids. We want to understand them a little bit more, and we want to get to thinking about them. It's something that we talk about a lot. We hear a lot of riders talk about them, and sometimes all it is talk. When it comes to riding, we get a little bit mixed up with them. So we want to talk a little bit about that and how that influences our horse and how each of our aids influence each other also. So when we talk about our aids, we talk about, typically we talk about natural aids and artificial aids, right? Natural aids being the seat, the legs, the hands, the voice, you know, kind of the things that we're born with. And the artificial aids being things like the bit, the spur, a whip, a training flag, anything like that. Anything you're not born with, basically, that we bring into the picture would be considered our artificial aids. When we talk about natural versus artificial, we're not talking about ingredients in a dinner recipe. So we're not saying one is good and one is bad. We're just calling them what they are, as far as you're either born with them or you're not. So if it's something you're born with, it's a natural aid. If it's not, then it's an artificial aid. So not good or bad, just is what it is. And we can talk about sequencing our aids. We talk about primary aids, secondary aids, tertiary aids. So let's say, for instance, you're asking your horse to make a transition from the walk into the trot, right? Your primary aid would be the first aid that you would give. That would be your seat. Your secondary aid, you might follow through with your leg aid. And a tertiary aid, the third aid, is if your horse isn't following the seat, isn't responding to the leg, then maybe you're, adding your whip. Or if you're a Western rider, you might have the macate if you've got that, or a quirt, or something along those lines. So that's about the order of the aids. One of the things I really like, I heard Charles de Cunfee say this once. He said that the seat initiates, the leg motivates, and the rein validates. And I really like the thought of that. I would add that the whip supports. And the whip can be your whip, it can be the quirt, it can be the macate, it can be your training flag, it can be your spur, it can be whatever that tertiary aid kind of would be in that situation. And to kind of simplify that, I think of it as the seat says, let's go here, let's do this. The leg says, give me more. The reins would say, yes, that's right, or no, not quite. And the whip, or that tertiary aid, whatever that would be, that says, hey, you forgot something. You missed me back here. You weren't focused, that sort of thing. We want to think also about the relationship or the ratio of our aids. You may have seen, a while ago, there was a graphic going around about the ratio of aids. That was something actually that I shared in an article several years ago, and in the last 6 months it's gained a lot of traction, and I've seen it pop up all over the place. But basically what that talks about is the ratio of the aids as we are in contact with our horse. If we think about surface area as our ratio of aids, it was 80% seat, 18% lower leg, and 2% hand, right? in the way that we contact the horse, that's basically where we're sitting. 80% seat, 18% lower leg, 2% rein, or 2% hand. And what oftentimes happens is riders will overuse oftentimes the leg, sometimes the rein, and when that happens, that 80% seat just kind of goes right out the window, right? We want to think about how that works when we're using our aids. Going back to, the seat says, let's go here, or let's do this. I would think about our seat as Charles de Cunfee says, the seat initiates. The seat makes a movement. I talk about riders kind of going as if they were going with or without their horse, right? That would be that initiation from the seat. That would be the seat offering the suggestion. And the leg, when we say the leg motivates, if the leg says, give me more, what I like to think about is I wouldn't necessarily follow, or I wouldn't necessarily add my leg unless the horse was following my seat, going where I wanted him to. Now, our foundation work, this is a little bit different, right? In our foundation work, we need to teach the horse how to yield to the aids properly. We have different positions for our legs to help the horse understand this idea of following that feel, yielding off of pressure, however we want to call it. We teach them the appropriate responses to the leg aids. And then when our seat comes in, again, I think the seat says, let's go here, let's do this. The leg says, give me more. So let's say, for instance, I'm asking for a leg yield from my horse. If I'm asking for a leg yield and I get resistance to my seat, I'm not going to add my leg because the leg says, give me more, right? And in that case, I'm asking for more resistance. So I'm not going to do that. That would be when we talk about how the whip supports, right? The whip says, hey, you might have missed something. And again, the whip can be any number of aids. I'm just going to classify it as the whip. It can be your quirt, your makate, your, whatever. So what I would do, hopefully, at this point, we've educated the horse to body awareness and relaxation as a result of the aids, and responsiveness as well. So if I follow through with my seat and my horse hasn't followed me, the whip would come in, again, softly. I'm not saying we're going to beat on him. The whip comes in as a reminder, touching, oftentimes just opening, to say, hey, you forgot to follow me that way. Once he's following the seat, then the leg can come in and say, give me more. More reach, more speed, more expression, more energy, more impulsion, more engagement, more collection, more of lots of things. But I want to be sure that the horse is following the seat first. Again, keep in mind, this is for a horse that's already got a basic education. In our, say your first dozen rides on a horse, when you're starting him under saddle, you've got to be breaking down the aids still and teaching the horse appropriate responses to our position in different places. Once he's got that understanding, that's when we start thinking more about this sophisticated idea. Now, we talk about the rein. The rein says, yes, that's right, or no, not quite. The rein can be passive. The rein can be active in certain ways, helping the horse then to follow the seat, just as the whip can help the horse to follow the seat. So if we need to make a correction, that's where, of course, that rein comes in. Ideally, we wouldn't need to make those corrections because the horse would be following the seat. But we know, we understand, we don't live always in an ideal world. And there are moments, there are squirrels that our horse might see. There are things, distractions that would pop up there that we might need to help the horse understand a little more. Or maybe he's got a weakness and we need to help him to use himself a little different to gain strength or things like that. We want to really think about that. Oftentimes, what we tend to see is the overuse of the leg. We hear all the time, more leg, more leg, more leg, more leg. Again, the leg says, give me more. If we're getting resistance, I'm not going to add more leg. I'm not going to ask for more resistance. And we have a lot of times this challenge of riders thinking that they can push a horse someplace. Well, that really doesn't make much sense because we're sitting on top, right? If we could push the horse someplace, maybe that'd be a different story, but I don't really think we can. That's like the idea of sitting on top of a picnic table and thinking you're going to push it across the park. You've got to have your legs on the ground and pick it up to push it someplace or to carry it someplace. When you're sitting on top, what we hope to do is get our idea to become that horse's idea. We hope to motivate him to go there. But the more we push, that's not going to help. If anything, the horse would just maybe go begrudgingly to get away from our pressure, let's say, rather than to do what it is we've asked. So we want to think about that. Another thing you want to think about is if you and I were standing next to each other and I gave you just a little nudge, you might yield to that. But if I started really leaning into you, shouldering into you, then chances are good you're going to resist against that, right? You've got to think about how we're applying our aids and what that does to our horse. If I'm using a lot of leg, then it's just going to compress those muscles that maybe I needed to extend. Maybe I needed those muscles to operate in a different way. If I'm squeezing him like I'm trying to squeeze the toothpaste out of him, that's not going to allow him to move in the way that we want him to move. So I make the joke all the time that I'm a lazy princess on a horse. I don't want to work too hard. It's the horse's job, right, to carry me. It's the horse's job to follow my seat and do those things. So you want to think about, one of my coaches talks about having electric legs. And I love that idea where you're not squeezing like you're in a vice, but you're offering your legs in a way that helps to energize that horse rather than dull him down. And it's through a light contact of the leg that helps the horse to do that. So while that might fly in the face of some instruction out there, that's going to definitely be a way to help your horse to become more responsive. Never in the history of horsemanship have we been able to get a horse light to our leg by being heavy with our leg. Okay, and I don't know why that seems to be so challenging sometimes for riders to understand, but I think it's because we're so much in this pattern of wanting to do. We want to push, we want to make the thing happen, when really what we've got to do is motivate the thing to happen, but not make the thing happen. And again, going back to the idea of you and I standing next to each other, if I'm really shoving and pushing on you, then that's not going to help you. You're just going to resist against that. Same idea with your horse. If we think about some of the biggest challenges that we have with riders using their seat, I'm going to take dressage, for instance, because most of my students are dressage riders. Some of the biggest faults that we see in our dressage tests, in our leg yields, in our circles, in our lateral work, are riders sitting crooked, riders leaning to the inside, leaning to one side or another. And oftentimes that's because they're overusing their lower leg. If you think about it, when you're on your horse and you're squeezing too much with that leg, it draws your body down into that leg. And now you're sitting generally on the wrong side of your horse. Primarily we want to be over top of the middle, right? But if we think about, say, a leg yield to the right, if I'm using my left leg to make that happen and I'm squeezing and sitting down into that left side, in order for him to leg yield in the direction of the right, to the right, he needs to step that left hind leg deeper under his body, right? Well, if he needs to do that, I need to get out of its way, right? I need to be out of the way of that left hind leg. So I don't want to be sitting to that inside thinking I'm going to push him over that way. That's a common mistake that we see with riders. That just adds more weight to that leg. It blocks that leg. It gets in the way of that leg. I want to think about, again, I'm going to ride in the direction of that leg yield as if I was going to go with or without my horse. And that's going to keep that leg free. Right, that leg that needs to step deeper, now I'm not adding extra weight to it. Now I don't want to get too far into that other side because then I'm blocking the legs on the outside that need to reach, right? So I'm thinking about being very square in the middle and quietly carrying my seat off, in this case, off to the right, to the direction of the leg yield that I want to make. If I go too far, I'm in the way. If I go too far the other side, squeezing, pushing, I'm in the way, right? So we want to try to stay in the middle and be very subtle with those aids. The seat requesting, right? The seat saying, hey, let's go here, let's do this. You'd be surprised at how subtle you can be with your seat, particularly when we're talking about riding with solid equitation, because we sit fairly near to our horse's center of gravity, right? Or to our horse's center of balance. Especially if he's not, dragging himself around on the forehand. The more balanced the horse is, the more that center of balance comes near to the rider's seat. and the more influential the rider can be with very little work at that point. So that's something that we want to think about. Now, we say, a lot of times we have that challenge where the horse can't hear our seat, maybe because there's tension in their back, and that's very true. If you think about the back being tense and tight, if those longissimus muscles specifically are bilaterally contracted, if he's tense on both sides of his body, he's not going to feel us necessarily moving up there, moving our seat up there. So again, we go back. Everything goes back to relaxation, right? The primary function of everything we want to do with a horse is to bring relaxation and understanding. The secondary function of what we do with a horse is to educate him or to direct him. So with relaxation first, the horse will begin to follow the rider's seat. And then again, we can add leg to ask for more. We can supplement with rein if we need different postures, different positions, or more support. And if we need to be more specific and help the horse to follow the seat, then that's when the whip or the flag or the macate or whatever else would be coming in there to support our horse. So that's something that we want to think about. If we overuse any of the pieces, we'll get in the way, we'll block, we'll make it challenging for the horse to do what it is we want him to do. But we want to really think about that idea of 80% seat, 18% lower leg, 2% hand. Okay? If we try to focus within that, then we're more apt to help our horse in a way where we don't have to work so hard. Again, making sure that we're starting with relaxation. But I guess what I want to say with all of this is just be a lazy princess, right? Borrow my tiara. Don't overwork. Set your horse up first for relaxation, and then always initiate through that seat. The seat says, let's go here, let's do this. The leg says, give me more. The rein says, yes, that's right, or no, not quite. And the whip says, hey, you might have missed something here. Let's get with the program. Okay, so we want to think about those things when we're riding or when we're working on the ground even. Your body becomes your seat in that moment, initiating, right? Setting that idea, and then we follow through with our other aids. So this is a fairly short coffee conversation here, or coffee and wine conversation. Fairly short, but hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully it gives you some things to think about. If you've got questions about this, feel free. Submit those questions in the comments section. If you've got suggestions for future conversation topics, please feel free also. Put those in the comments section or send me a message about those. I look forward to catching up with you guys again soon, hoping, my fingers are crossed, my plan is to start doing these maybe on a weekly basis. And many of you have asked about the Talking About Horses podcasts, saying, well, did you stop those? Are they still going? They're still going. It's also a situation with those where the schedule's just been crazy. I'm not complaining. It's been fun. I've been working with riders all around the world, and I absolutely love it. But we're definitely going to be getting back to that. I've got some guests lined up, some exciting guests lined up that I can't wait to share with you as soon as I get dates coordinated for that to happen, and I'll be sure to announce that through our social media resources so that you can tune in for those. Otherwise, gang, if you're having a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, whatever you might be enjoying with this chat, I hope you enjoy it. I thank you for joining me, and we will talk to you again very soon. Thanks, gang.